Hey, everybody, and welcome to the HERstory Collaborative. My name is Jen Buck, and I'm your host here in the collab. Now, I'm all about advocating, activating, and amplifying high-performing women, and that's what the HERstory Collaborative is all about, trailblazing women who are changing their little corner of the world. Now, my next guest is Samantha Waterman. We've had such a good time talking behind the scenes, and I'm so excited about this interview. She is the executive director of the Association of ESD Professionals, which stands for Empowerment Self-Defense. She's a politico, lawyer, manager, and writer. Never one to take the straight path, Samantha has started her career in a political polling, and she was someone who was engaged and involved, and then she got herself a law degree a bit after the fact and practiced campaign finance and election law just for a little bit there. Then she was inspired by a client who is the Los Angeles mayoral candidate at the time, Antonio Villaraigosa. You may have heard his name in the news. He has made a big splash in California. Now, she left the firm to work on this historic campaign and later in the mayor's office in DC and on local, state, and federal campaigns. Samantha is passionate about politics because she sees it as the most promising tool for making the world a better place. You can probably figure out by now why I was so excited to talk to her, so excited to have her on the show. So welcome to the collab, Samantha.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are such a rock star. I felt this sort of immediate kinship. You know, you and I have both spent time working in the political arena, and we both see it as a vehicle to make the world better. And so I love that you have this really, really big commitment to doing what's right to make sure that women, people in general, are on the right side of these political decisions. And so I have to ask you, because I know that you said it wasn't a straight path, was this something that you came to early in your life, that you were interested in politics? I do want to touch on that, and then we're going to get all into the business stuff, but I'm just curious about this.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason it was so circuitous is not because my interest in politics came late. That came at the beginning.
Okay.
I mean, my mom has stories from when I was 3, and I'm like, upset about something happening in the world or something.
Yeah.
I've always been really, really interested in politics and
Yeah.
history. And when I'm interested in history, it's always political history. I just fascinated. I read volumes of books about the Vietnam War and
Oh,
everything that
wow.
happened around it, and
Yeah.
President Kennedy, and a little bit about President when I was in high school. I mean, I just ate
Wow.
this stuff up, but I didn't understand, and I honestly can't explain how this is possible, but I did not understand how you have a career in politics.
Yeah.
I just didn't put two and two together. And I was just kind of myopic in those terms. I could be broad-minded when I think about policy in the world and other people. But when it comes to myself, I get blinders on and I only see what's in front of me. And
Yeah.
my dad is a professor, therefore I should get a PhD.
Right.
So I was kind of clueless that way. And that is one of the reasons it came so late. And then I kind of poked around and thought about doing a bunch of different things. And finally, I did a couple little kind of political-ish things, like the polling thing that was at CBS News for the
Mhm.
CBS News New York Times poll. And it was an amazing experience. But again, I didn't know what to do with it or where to take it, or that there were private firms that did this in Washington, D.C., or I just didn't know the whole world existed even then. And I mean, I was sitting there, I was helping prep uh, well, it was Dan Rather was the, you know, um, host of the show at that time. He was the anchor, but I was for Connie Chung and for other people. I did actually 2 different stints there, one while I was still in college and then one later. And it was amazing, but I just didn't get the career side of it, how you make this work. And I was just clueless. So that's why, anyway, I poked around, tried this, tried that, ended up going to law school eventually 6 years after graduating from college. Did campaign finance and election law, and then was inspired by Antonio Villaraigosa, left, went to work for his campaign, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. And because I am so engaged in politics, when I started understanding and sort of figuring out where you were at, you dropped his name, I was like, oh gosh, I need to pick this woman's brain. This is so exciting. So I love that. And I also love, and we're going to actually dive into what you do with ESD and what this means
Yeah.
for people as the executive director. But there's also a political component there as well, right?
Yes.
In making
Yes.
sure that all of these things come together. So we're going to get to that. That's a little bit of a teaser, but please tell us a little bit about empowerment self-defense and what this is all about, because I'm not sure that it's as mainstream as it should be for women, right? And
That's you
so, yeah.
on the nose. I mean, that is exactly that is one of the main reasons that the association has been created. So I'm running the Association of ESD Professionals, and it's the first professional association, is recognized by the IRS and all that for empowerment self-defense professionals. And one of the reasons is because nobody knows what that is. I mean, I tell people, oh, I'm working in an empowerment self-defense, and they say, what is that? And I
Mhm.
would love it if one day they say, oh, that's great, because
Yes.
they know what it is. And what
Yes.
it is a form of self-defense. So I'm not an instructor myself, but I'm, putting together this association to represent all the instructors out there.
Mhm.
And they teach self-defense in a very practical way. That's the first thing to know. So you don't need to know martial arts. You don't need to be super strong. You could have a physical disability. You could be 85 years old and walk with a cane. You could, be a kid and not super athletic. It doesn't matter. They will figure out a way to teach you how to defend yourself, to do the best that you can do in any given circumstance. The
Mhm.
second thing is that they teach you a number of tools. They give you a number of tools. And then they say, now that you have these tools, we also want to teach you how to think about which tools to use so that in any given situation, you choose, you figure out which tool to use because we can't prescribe it ahead of time.
Mhm.
There are too many variables. I mean, are you a woman who is, maybe you're married and your husband is abusive and you have a 2-year-old who's sitting there in the pen while you're washing dishes and then your husband comes up on you because he's drunk. I mean, are we going to say you should always do X? Well, you have to think about your kid. You have to think about the fact that you're holding a glass. You have to think, I mean, every situation is different. Or you could be outside 7-Eleven and someone just harasses you. I mean, so they just want to give you the tools and then the practice to understand how to use the tools. They teach situational awareness,
Mhm.
self-awareness. How are you acting? What signals are you giving off? How are they acting? What signals? Can you anticipate that violence might be coming? Is there a way you might be able to de-escalate? Is
Mhm.
it a situation where you should run away?
Mhm.
And if so, how do you do that? And run away could be literally run away, like run down the street, or it could be take steps to leave a dangerous living situation. And that's not right for everyone, but it's just so you know that these are things you can do. It teaches you the physical moves, and again, yeah, they're influenced by martial arts. But they're not martial. It's just not. It's just stuff that you can do. You're knocked to the ground. Well, kick them in the groin. It's really just. And I'm not an expert on the language of the physical aspect of it. I did my 16 hours
Yeah.
at
Yes.
Impact, and that was great. But I'm an amateur, but they really know how to teach you, and they use repetition so that it becomes like muscle memory, right? So that when you panic, your body kind of knows what to do.
Yeah.
Right. So they try to anticipate all these different things. And then, of course, there's the last thing, which is to tell your story. Maybe it's to tell a friend what happened. Maybe it's to go to the police and report something or something in between.
Yeah.
But maybe it's to write in a journal, but to tell, that's an important piece too. And there are these 5 elements, and it's to think, yell, run, fight, tell. And I think that was coined by someone named Nancy Lanou, who was with the National Women's Martial Arts Federation.
Okay.
a couple decades ago and coined this term, but I'm not exactly sure of the history of the term, but a lot of folks use it now. And the other thing I want to say is, although I'm running this and I got it started, it is not my idea. It's not my concept. It comes from Judith Siddikman and a group of people who she had been speaking to about how can we get more empowerment self-defense out there.
Yeah.
Research has shown it's very effective in preventing violence and interrupting violence. But there, I mean, I don't know the facts of this. I'd have to look it up, but I know there was a study somewhere in Africa. I'm not sure if it was Kenya or Nigeria, but I think it might have been Kenya. And anyway, they taught, women in a village for about over 12-week period. And at the end of this period, rapes and attempted rapes went down like 80%. And
Wow.
part of it is the men were like they're fighting back.
Mm-hmm.
Like it used to be part of the culture. The men thought they could take what they wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Except what they wanted was a woman and her body and and so it wasn't, and so they're like, it's too much work now. Like I have to, fight for it. I don't want to fight for it.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, so it can really be incredibly effective. And there are people who specialize in teaching children and Tracy Arlington and Tasha Church. And I think someone in DC, I'm not sure if it's what the impact or defend yourself, but they also work with Girl Scouts.
Oh,
And
cool.
so, I could go on and on.
Yeah. I 20 years ago, so talking 2 decades ago with the yell, fight, run, all the things you had said,
Think, yell, run, fight, tell.
there it is. And so I remember when I was working, and again, about 20 years ago, my leader had the foresight on this team that was all women, and we were all traveling all the time, and we were always in different cities and always exposed. This female leader had the foresight to bring in a self-defense expert for us. And we did this incredible training. We had one part of the day was having a former criminal, incarcerated man
Yeah.
who was incarcerated for rape, stalking, abuse, battery, and had reformed and was now working to teach women how to be safe and aware. And that
Yeah.
was mostly situational awareness. But then the second half of the day was around a version of self-defense, right? And I'll tell you what, it for me was eye-opening to understand that this is about power. When you look at rape, when you look at abuse, when you look at any kind
That's right.
of force that's placed upon a woman, it's about power. It's
Yeah.
rarely about the sex. It's rarely about, anything
Right.
beyond dominance. And so one of the things that he was drilling in us was that you have to fight, because then you're too difficult. You're too much of a pain in the neck. There are too many other targets out there. And the minute you look them in the eye, the minute you say, why are you following me? The minute you say, hey, excuse me, can you come over here to someone else, and grab attention to that person? All these little small decisions that are made are making you more of a pain in the neck for this person.
It's
And
true.
that was
You're exerting your power.
yes, that was an eye opener. And so we did get the self-defense training at the second half of the day. But really what stuck with me was exactly what you're saying about, it being about dominance, it being about, either being an easy target or too difficult of a target, and really being proactive before you have to get to that point, right?
Yeah.
And I am also really glad that there are organizations like the one you're working for that is talking about self-defense from a female perspective, which I do love. And also I know that they're even doing these situational exercises when you're in a dress, when you're in heels, when you're in your everyday situation. So, when you have a bag on you, it's not just about getting into the perfect stance. It's really about real life situations. And I love that. And especially right now in this world, when we're looking at active shooters, we're looking at such an increase in violence that's just random violence on the street. We're seeing this impact of mental health right now skyrocket since COVID. I mean, I just feel like it's perfect timing, and it's the perfect thing for women to choose to do for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, domestic violence alone, I mean, that's in some places, at least in the US, 75, 80% of violence is domestic violence, which is why there's more of a focus on that in ESD rather than the stranger on the street.
Mhm.
But yeah, since COVID, that skyrocketed. And now we also have a little bit more of the street crime as well. And in some places, that is the main, that is an equally big concern. Not that there's less domestic violence, unfortunately, but that it's a
Mhm.
more dangerous place to be, um, some areas outside of Mexico City, it's like women don't walk on the street without getting attacked. I mean, and
Mm.
there's some other places too, all over the world, and it's just very scary. But uh, you know, it is about power. I agree. That's why it's called empowerment self-defense.
Mhm.
And some instructors so some use padded assailants. So that's someone who dresses up and they put all this padding all over them and then they act like actors, like they're the scumbag or they're
Yeah.
the abusive whomever. And then you fight them. And with all your power, that's why they have so much padding on, so that
Yeah.
you can use 100% effort, not just kind of go through air motions, and that's part of what builds that, muscle memory and all of that. And it's symbiotic in my mind. So as you increase your confidence, you can use these physical skills better. But as you practice these physical skills, you increase your confidence.
Yeah.
And confidence is power. And so, and one of the things that sticks in my mind from the 16-hour course I took is being told that, say you're on the ground and they're close to you, but you're facing outward. The first thing you want to do is not try to go further out. You actually want to roll in to them so
Mm.
you're facing them, because then guess what? All of your limbs are facing them and you can push away
Wow.
and then kick
Yeah.
from the floor.
Right.
So it's just it's not intuitive, but it's very logical,
Yes.
right?
This
Because
is reminding me.
our emotional brain says go the opposite way.
Right.
But
Right.
and they also teach you to walk into the fight sometimes. I mean, it depends on the circumstance and what
Mhm.
you decide to do. But that even just watching a fight scene on TV, I will imagine, oh, walk into, like so and it was just 4 nights, 4 hours a night, and it sticks with you. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I've also watched in that class a couple of people who started with small voices
Mm.
and finished with powerful roars. I
Wow.
mean, night and day in 4 days. It's just
Incredible.
incredible. So, and that, of course, can translate to work. It can translate to personal relationships. It can translate to better choices so you don't end up in maybe, not that I'm saying it's anyone's fault that you're in an abusive
Yeah.
situation, but sometimes maybe you'll see signs of it that you might not have seen before, or just all of these different things really contribute to it. Of course, it started as women's self-defense, and that is the focus, but we're also teaching men and boys.
Right.
And I believe that one of the huge advantages, aside from, say, you have like the skinny nerdy kid, he's getting stuffed in the garbage can every day after school or what have you, and so he needs some skills and he needs some confidence and he needs that. But not only that, but think about the golden boy, and he's got everything, but what you don't know is all the pressure he has at home. And
Mm.
so what happens to him? He becomes a bully. Maybe ESD is what I'd like to see in every middle school in the world, and every kid learns it. Maybe he now has the confidence he didn't really have because he had it in some areas, but it was partially kind of feigning it,
Mm.
pretending, because he felt so small at home,
Right.
right? So, and nobody knows that. You only see the perfect, golden boy on the outside, the football star, the A student, all these things. And same with girls too, but maybe we prevent them from becoming a bully, you know?
Hmm.
And then we also, of course, there's a huge focus on transgender people, people
Yes.
of, any gender, whatever, however it is that they feel, whomever they really are,
Yeah.
giving them the power, again, power to just be themselves without fear.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's really mind-boggling how much this can help, and with research showing how effective it is. Yeah, I mean, one of my big goals is to get ESD into all the schools. And it wouldn't be, me doing it, but I'm just saying to have
Yeah.
the association help, whether it's indirectly or directly. And we will do lobbying and advocacy. We're going to be starting that up probably next year. We'll start planning it this year, though.
Mhm.
The Violence Against Women's Act, self-defense isn't included. We don't get funding, but we don't want all self-defense necessarily included, broadly speaking. I think it's because of so much self-defense instruction does work with weapons. And some people who practice empowerment self-defense also teach, using replicas, things like that. But really the focus is just about you and using what you have around you and using yourself to protect yourself. And there are also those, like, organization called Pink Belt and also Malika. Malika is here in the US, Pink Belt is in India. And they both include financial empowerment in
Wow.
their self-defense instruction.
Wow.
Um, and that's another thing, because think about, you feel like you can't leave because you're looking at going to a shelter and you have two kids, and then what?
Hmm.
And you have like a part-time job, and
Right.
and you or you don't think that you have the wherewithal to do it.
Yeah.
But with a little bit of help, you very well may. You just need to get tapped in and learn that and feel that and all of that.
Right. Right. I feel like, with you and I both being in politics, we know how important the endorsements are. The whole process of getting grants is so similar to endorsements. It's the same kind of really detailed stuff to just move the needle forward. And I can see this being something that is probably well granted in the world of funding. I just feel like there's something here.
It should
And
be.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
work on that.
I really hope there is. And I really sense that there are a lot of women out there who know that this is something they want to do. And when it's a 4-night training and it's 4 hours each night, and you can come out with a new sense of confidence, a new set of skills, I just feel like this is incredibly powerful for people to be involved with. And I love the, all gender non-binary. I just think that's awesome also. And yeah, I think this is really, really important. So how would
I think
people
so too.
connect with you and, ESD, and where would they go for that?
Well, that's one of the reasons we exist, is we hope to be a hub to get you to whomever you need to go. We're working on creating a directory, a public directory, so that
Cool.
will be wonderful when we get that done. We've started work on that, but I can be reached at Waterman at esdprofessionals.org, and our website is www.esdprofessionals.org.
Right.
There are people teaching empowerment self-defense all over the world, more and more. Part of our mission is to broaden the reach of ESD. So we're hoping to make that exponential growth. The more
Yeah.
it grows, the more it grows. And, of course, we have all the social media at ESD Professionals or ESD Professional. And, we can try to get you to where you need to be, or maybe, you travel a little to take a class. Sometimes it's a week and it's super intensive. Sometimes it's just a few hours a night. Sometimes people give classes just on the weekends and you just do it over a period of time, and everyone has a different model. And so there are
Yeah.
lots of different options. And we would love to get more folks taking the classes, and half the people, sometimes more than half the people, end up wanting to teach it themselves, and then you get
Yeah.
trained to teach it, and it just can go and go and go.
I love that. So I am going to transition a little bit here because I've got some speed round questions that I love to ask my guests, just sort of to round out the end of the interview. And they're just fun because I like to find out what you're listening to or watching, or what you're reading. I mean, whatever it might be for you, who you are, who you're inspired by. So I want to throw some questions at you, just a handful. We don't have to go too deeply into any of these. And if you don't have an answer, please know you can pass. We don't have to do that one if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't think of anything. So
I don't
yeah.
know.
So if you're okay with that, I'm just going to throw
Yes,
them at you, get a quick answer back, and we'll jump to the next question. Good?
absolutely.
Okay, cool. This first one is my favorite question. Who is your favorite woman in history? If you got like a chance to spend an hour with that woman, who would that be for you?
This was actually a tough one for me. My idols in history have largely been men because, that's who everyone focuses on. But I'd have to say that I admire, I'm going way back in history, Queen Elizabeth
Yeah.
so much. And she's so, I mean, just phenomenal accomplishments
Mhm.
against all the odds, but also sad because of what she had to give up to make it happen, and sad because not sure it's changed
Mhm.
too much, a
Yeah.
little bit, but not enough, where, you kind of have to choose. You're either a woman, and all that that entails,
Or
or
queen.
you're a leader,
Yeah.
and it's getting better, but it's still so challenging. It might always be challenging because, women are the
Yeah.
ones who can carry babies, and there's
Yeah.
some biological things here, not just cultural and social. So, but still,
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Lilibet. So yes, good answer. What's your favorite place that you've ever traveled to in the world?
you know, I love this country. I think this country is so incredibly beautiful. I've driven across country 13 times or 14, I'm not sure. I've lost track. And so my favorite places are actually here,
Cool.
like Big Sur,
Yes.
Woodstock, Vermont.
Ooh.
Um, and, my heart is in Southern California. And Washington, D.C. is one of my all-time favorite places because of the history and because of what it stands for, all the monuments, what we're supposed to be and what
Yeah.
we are supposed to stand for.
Awesome. If you were given $1 million to donate and it had to go to a charity, which one would you choose?
Oh, wait, it has to go to a charity?
Mhm.
That's harder. So if I had $1 million just to donate, I
Yeah.
would give it to Democrats to win the House and the Senate and
Oh,
state
listen to
races.
you.
And they're
Okay.
not charities. That's
Got it.
just a no-brainer to me because we can't change anything that's going on now unless we have, well, power, back to power.
Mhm. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
What is your favorite book or podcast? Either or.
During election season, when it really heats up, I can answer this even better because there are always a few. David Plouffe had one a couple years ago that it was my favorite. I was addicted, but he doesn't have it right now. So I guess I'd have to say, Lincoln Project and Nicole Wallace and Bulwark. I really love all like these like Republicans who have turned away from what's happening with their party, and admire them so much, and they're not even Republicans anymore. So,
Yeah.
but and then I also listen to the History of Rome podcast. So I listen to all kinds of things.
Very cool. Here's my last question because we're running out of time here. What's a quirky or wacky fact about you that many people may not know?
Well, that I am so patriotic. Every single time I hear the Star Spangled Banner, I cry
Oh,
without fail. I mean, every single time. I can't help it. I just, I know that we're in such a bad place right now for so many reasons, but I just, I just want to make us better and get back to what we're stand for. And I'm just one of those, it's just not that common with people who are on the left to be so like, I don't know, emotional about being patriotic.
that's great. I love it. So before we go, if you could tell us one more time the website that people could go
Absolutely.
to look
Abs-
into ESD and sign up if they want to do that, get information.
Yes, it's esdprofessionals.org. So empowerment, self, defense, empowerment, self defense. So it's esdprofessionals.org. And we're at ESD Professionals for our social media, Instagram, Facebook, at ESD Professionals, singular for Twitter. And And that's it. And you can
Awesome.
contact us through the website as well. So it's easy to get in touch with us.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Before we go, I do want to thank our podcast sponsor, 100 Angels. 100 Angels is transforming communities through service and education by providing comfort to populations in need through physical, emotional, and spiritual care. I have recently actually just been hired as their chief communications officer. So this is a beautiful relationship that has just sort of blossomed even further. So not only do I have the podcast and do the speaking, but I'm actually now their chief comms officer. And so I am a big fan. I love what they're doing. They have been a sponsor of ours for a very long time, over a year. And even though I brought more people in, they've always sort of come back, and they're really changing communities by giving them things that they need, like over-the-counter medications, clothing, comfort toys. They're bringing water tanks to communities. I mean, these people just go so far. So if you'd like to connect with 100 Angels, you can go to 100angels.org. I am so happy that you were here. This has been so much fun for me. And I just hope that we stay connected, Samantha, because I really think you are a badass woman. And I'm really impressed by you. And I hope we can do this again.
I would love to, and we will definitely stay connected because I mean, you have an amazing show. I listened to your show and caught up a little bit when a couple days ago, and just you always do wonderful interviews and find amazing women, and so thank you so
Oh,
much for having me.
yay. Thank you. And everybody, we will connect on the next episode of the Her Story Collaborative. Have a great day. Bye-bye.